Oh, that's a great question. That's part of my talk this morning. What's all the fuss about knowledge translation? I really think it's about mobilizing ideas. It's really about taking research or other forms of knowledge or evidence and putting them together in a way that will actually be useful and understandable to different audiences. It's certainly not sort of prepackaged boxes of knowledge going along a conveyor belt and then being taken up and used and having impact. It's really a much more complex process than that. I see it as a very user-based process. You start with understanding the needs of the users. You see what you've got for them in terms of evidence and other forms of knowledge, and you try to put those together in a way that's sensible.
Knowledge translation to me in simple terms is closing the gap between what we know and what we do. But I actually, as I had mentioned in my talk, I do have a slight issue with the terminology, because over the last several years I've held multiple positions in knowledge translation, knowledge exchange, knowledge translation exchange, knowledge mobilization, K-STAR, and the list really goes on. There's 131 terms, if not more, that have to do with knowledge translation. And to me, I think trying to align ourselves to one term has really taken away from what knowledge translation or exchange is really about.
Knowledge translation is not easy, okay? It's messy because it is essentially a human process, right? You need to form relationships, you need to develop trust, you need to, communicate.
And it's about a process. It's the steps that we must take to actually do it effectively. And so for me, I'm not a term person. So I would be happy if, one day we all just came to agreement that this is the one term we're going to use, but then really start to think about the process and how to do it. And so, because I think what happens in the field is we're actually confusing people outside of the field. So people who are just learning what knowledge translation or exchange or whatever we're calling it is, they start to say, well, I thought it was knowledge exchange 3 years ago, but now it's knowledge mobilization. And so what's the differences? And then when people start to describe the differences, there really aren't very many differences. And so I think that's something that needs to be looked at. And just, if we could have some kind of consensus conference to determine one term, and then as a field we just say that's it, we're not going to change it anymore, and then stop. I think that would be welcomed, at least from my point of view.